Well, I suppose you could say they communicate well, they don't communicate well. It's in some ways, again, we've talked a little about the differences between a traditional classroom and an online classroom. In a lot of ways, it's a lot easier for students to communicate online. That's one of the pluses. I mean, you know, you look at any of the literature on it, you talk to any of us that have taught. Traditional classroom, a lot of times it can be very intimidating to respond. So unless you have a professor like me that'll walk over and say, Terry, what do you think? And then all of a sudden you're just, you know, if you don't have that in an online environment, like I said earlier, people have time to reflect on the question typically, and they can jump in. Now, one of the challenges you have in terms of getting this communication going with them, you have to make it very clear in any examples you give early on that you can't just say, oh, I agree. Oh, that's a good point, Terry, I agree. Well, that's not discussion. That'd be like if you just asked me something, I go, yes. You'd be sitting there, where are we now? So, I mean, you have to be very pointed as a professor, and certainly if you're setting up the discussion questions, you really need to give some thought to the questions. Because like I said, it's not the same as a traditional classroom where I can gauge reaction of your face that you didn't understand the question, or perhaps it's too much, or I've got somebody talking all the time over here and trying to control that. Online, the communication of information is absolute critical. So the questions have to be the type that get them to respond. And like I said, I try to encourage them typically. There's two ways, I guess there's two schools of thought on student communication. One is, do you want them to read what the other person, the initial person in, says and then react to it? Or do you want them to kind of come in with their reaction first and then go back to the thread, because you can get this idea of the threaded conversations. And I guess over the years I've got two lines of thought going on that. On the one hand, I typically like them to read what the other students have said initially and then react to that, because it forces them then to take that question to the next level. But the problem with it typically is, in a lot of times, you'll see that the same students, literally the minute the conversation thing opens, they jump right in and put the initial comments down, and then they bail out. And so they're reacting to the question, they're not really communicating with anybody, and so it's left for everybody else. Now, another real key factor on this that we haven't talked about, you get into the structure of how you set it up. How many people do you have in a discussion group is real critical. And again, I played with that number over and over during the years, and I think a lot of people that have taught you know, more than I have would probably have a comment on this too. But I mean, typically I make group sizes of 4 to 6, somewhere in that range. You've got the same problem like with any group. You don't want free riders in there. You want to encourage people to discuss. And then what you can do, what's really nice with the tools, the software nowadays, literally every question you can put different groups or different people together, and it'll do it all automatically if you want it to. You can do it yourself. So a lot of times I'll say, yeah, put group 1 and group 3 on this question, group 1 and group 4 on this one, so they get a different mix. And then certain questions I'll throw out there, I'll put the whole class on it because I want to see what they do with it. And now you might have 20, 25 people responding. I mean, I can't imagine if you threw one of those out in a MOOC where you have 10,000 responding, but that's a whole different animal. But so in terms of getting them to communicate, I think the group size is important. How you word the questions is very important, and how you talk to students in that first week or two. You really need to, as an instructor, get back in the comment section. You need to jump into the conversation yourself. I mean, this is something that we forget, because like I said, in the classroom, you tend to react. You tend to do it just instinctively. Online, it's pretty easy to just let the students go and, yeah, I'll go check it on Thursday or something. Well, if you're not actively engaged in the communication online, they know it. They know it. And so you need to, as an instructor, let a few of them comment and then go yourself react, but react in the way that you want them to respond also. So if I go in, I try to give them an example of something that goes with what I'm saying. And, you know, and I respond to questions. So early on in the course, the students see that I'm engaged online. I'm not just sitting there posting this and leaving it out in the cybersphere, and I'm not going to look at it till the end of the class. Because, I mean, literally, you could do that. You know, tip for instructors. You want to be lazy? Yeah, you can do that. I don't recommend it. I mean, again, if you want participation and if you really want to teach these people, you need to be engaged in the conversation yourself. So how to get students involved, type of question, but also you need to be involved, just like the classroom. Not a lot of difference.